Although some of us are still working remote or hybrid, many of us still spend most of our time dedicated to work versus personal. So it's so important to make sure that you're part of a work family that's working towards the same goals and really having fun doing it. Workplace culture is a very important aspect that businesses should be focusing on, as it's key to the success of any organization. And why not be known as a place that prides themselves on, having that sense of accomplishment within their team? In an employment market like today's, employers can't afford to ignore workplace culture. So I've invited my very own amazing clients from TimePlay and Stream 6, Oren, Rosen, and Gidon Kerbel. Oren Rosen is a seasoned business executive with over 20 years of experience working with the largest companies in the world, including Walmart, Teachers Pension Fund, and many other Fortune 100s. He's an experienced CEO with having grown and exited a global technology company, and is now leading charge as CEO of TimePlay and Stream 6 in reimagining entertainment by ushering in the age of social interactive experiences. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Gidon. Gidon is a commercially focused CFO who's passionate about growing businesses. He's been growing businesses across multiple industries for over 20 years, and more recently co-led technology business from the early stage through build up and to exit. Gidon's now focused on building TimePlay and Stream 6 businesses with Oren and the rest of the team. And he's very passionate in developing win-win-win partnerships with all stakeholders in the business, such as employees, clients, vendors, shareholders, and bankers. Thank you both for being here today. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
So we've been working for quite some time to build the amazing workplace culture at TimePlay and Stream 6. And I'd love to hear more from the both of you on what drives your passion to make this an amazing place to work and for you and your team. And really want to share with the audience some tips and what's worked for you so that they can perhaps employ them. But I'd like to sort of jump right into the first question and tell me, why do you think workplace culture is important, and why should employers prioritize it?
For me, when we first got involved in TimePlay and Stream 6, and actually as I think about getting involved in any of the companies I've been in, the culture is so paramount to creating an environment where people want to do their best. And at the end of the day, in today's day and age, we're in a people business. Like, people are our biggest assets. So we got to make sure that we're maximizing the environment to be able to allow people to do their best. And so one example that's coming to mind, just to illustrate the point as to how culture is so important, is that what I've learned over the years is you have to create an environment that's safe to risk. So what I mean by that, if people are coming in and they're fearing failure and they're fearing judgment of leadership, they're not going to do their best because they're going to play it safe. And that's not, we can't survive unsafe in today's age because you have to push the limits. But to be able to get people to push the limits and then collectively push the limits, you have to create a culture of safe to risk so that people are willing to go above and beyond and knowing that they're going to be okay at that. So that's one example of how culture is so critical to creating an environment where people feel comfortable and comfortable pushing the limits so that they can do the best.
It's amazing. Thank you. I agree. I always say that, people don't wake up in the morning and, I'm not going to try my best today, right? Ideally, they're hard on themselves and they want to do well, right?
And, in our business, we make technology products, and those products sometimes don't have faces to them. But really, behind the products are a lot of faces, a lot of people. And those people don't work in isolation. They work in teams. We have deadlines to meet. We have just general business pressures. Having a very strong culture allows those teams of people behind the code and behind our products to actually work more cohesively. If we don't have a strong culture and we don't have that environment, as Oren mentioned, that's safe to risk and encourages innovation and having a fun environment to work in, then it becomes much more challenging for everybody to meet their work objectives. And go home on time and get some downtime and enjoy the enjoy their time with their families. And so that's why for us, the culture, and particularly in the workplace, is really, really important.
Thank you. I think you've answered my next question, but what are some other characteristics that you would say defines a great workplace culture? I mean, the safe to risk, having an amazing, innovative workplace environment where it's safe. What other sort of characteristics would you say define an amazing workplace culture?
I think there's a few things. I mean, we have spent a lot of time thinking about what the beliefs and values, and codified it down to sort of 6 values, which I can touch on. But before I speak to that, I think something that I've learned, and actually Gidon had raised my mind or awareness to it over time, is that knowing that you're dealing with people and being mindful of the fact that people are coming to work, they're spending a lot of time in the workplace, and that they're going home to be with their families in many instances. And this is people that you work with, and also people that you interact with from a partnership standpoint. And so to be aware that if you are hard on somebody or put them in a bad mood, and then they then go home and then they're taking that out on their family, like, you don't be responsible for that. So for me, it's having this awareness that we're a bit of an ecosystem, and you're impacting people that then are going out into the world, into their families and the world at large, and they're then having the impact. So I think from a cultural standpoint, again, just the macro awareness of saying, we're all people. Let's treat people how we want to be treated, because again, they're going on, and if they go home with a smile and they smile to their kids or their family or friends, and they sort of bring some joy into that we're responsible for that, and vice versa. If you're doing the opposite, it's not something that we want to be. So that's one, is the safe to risk environment. 2 is just being mindful that we've got to be kind to each other.
Absolutely.
And then on the other side, because we're in an environment where we have to innovate. The world is an incredibly competitive place. As the borders are blurring because the global village that we've created with the internet and whatnot, so competition is at an all-time high. So you have to be able to innovate, and so therefore we have to create a culture where we want to push the limits, and we want to work hard but play hard, because it's not a place that we can come and coast, for example, because you're not going to get ahead by doing that. We have to push ourselves to the limits, and so it's a blend of how do you do that? How do you create a culture where people want to give their best and push as hard as they can, but not from a slave driver standpoint, call it, from a place where it comes from these intrinsic motivations to want to do their best. Because you have to, like in today's environment, you have to have an environment like that, because if you're not going to do it, somebody else is out there like biting at your ankles.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And just to echo what Oren's saying, it can't be contrived, because teammates and team members will see through that very quickly. It has to come from a natural place. And we regard our people really as part of our family. We were just talking before this podcast or before this call that I'm going to invite everybody to the house to enjoy a barbecue. I mean, that's part of the culture that we want to instill. We need to think of our business as it grows. Right now we're over 40 people, and our previous business we had over 150 people. As the business grows, not only in the hiring process do we need to make sure that there's a cultural fit, but also, when people join the team, that they have the tools to, number one, be aware of our culture, and number 2 is that they exude that culture, not only new employees, but also existing employees. So in terms of how do we make sure that the culture works, obviously there's leadership by example, but also there's tools, Luisa, that you and your team have helped us with. That we've put in place in the business, and we your team has helped us with coaching some of our other leaders in the business, and also coaching our people, the rest of our team, on some of these tools and how to use these tools to exude the culture in the organization. And whilst we're still relatively small, it's important to get that core, the culture really, really strong, so that it becomes a natural, there's a natural wave as we grow. With more people coming into our teams, then they can see the examples from the others as to how what our culture should be like.
I can't agree with both of you more. Having that authenticity, and honestly, Oren, what you were saying earlier about the impact, it's essentially why I decided to open LD Human Resources, because there are neighbors, there are, our community members, and as you mentioned, your team members, and we really want to have it's that ecosystem, and to have that foundation of a core, strong workplace culture that's fun, innovative, you safe to risk. Really, that's something that will employ through someone's life in general, right? So we talk a little bit about leaders and coaching them. So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that leaders can make while they're trying to build a great workplace culture? Because, everyone is human. So perhaps we can share some avoidance tips.
The biggest tip that I have for myself as well as to others is patience. It's we're all passionate about building businesses. We're all passionate about achieving our goals, be that personal milestones or be that team milestones. And sometimes, the reality of business gets in the way, and there's a growing impatience either when you're waiting for somebody else or when you're trying to figure something out for yourself. But I think patience is an important thing. Communication is critical. When people are struggling, in order to avoid a problem, the best is to communicate with your team members, to release the pressure and release the stress. In most cases, we've found that you're not the only one that's having a problem. Other people are also having a problem, and just being able to share it with others can avoid a big problem down the line. So that patience and communication, I'd say, are two important factors to try and avoid, like bad culture from creeping in.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, adding to that, I think one that I'm continually learning and trying to grow on, and I see it as a pervasive issue that many organizations face, and that's avoiding the tough decisions. So when it comes to maybe there's a team member or team members that are not a right fit for the culture, for the organization, for whatever reason, and we tend to hang on to that too long because creating the culture we're talking about, it's almost like a family. And
Absolutely.
So then you get to the point that, okay, well, you got to boot one of these families off of the island per se. It's tough. And coming to that decision is hard. And then people, I find, and I've been guilty of this, that you hang on to it too long. So for me, the realization that you're not doing anyone any favors by doing that, and clarity is kindness for the person and for the organization, because it sends a message throughout the organization if you're tolerating subpar performance. So it's something that has to be dealt with, and I think people have a hard time dealing with it. But the more understanding that you have to face those tough decisions, make those tough decisions, because it's better for everybody.
Absolutely. There's that saying, one bad apple can ruin the bunch. It's not untrue, right?
And it's not. I mean, not to say it's a bad apple, just to jump on the metaphor for it, because it could be a good apple. It's just like the right apple for
that bunch.
For the bunch, yeah.
That's right.
And it's especially an important point when a lot of our teams are working at home, and communication styles are either through WhatsApp or through Teams or through email or through text, as opposed to face to face. And it's really important that we hold ourselves accountable, our leaders and our team members accountable to our corporate culture. And to Oren's point, that if it happens that there's a certain person that is not a fit, on a performance and a cultural level, then we shouldn't waste their time in keeping them in the family. Rather, let them go and spread their wings and do something else in a different family where they might be happier.
Yeah, to give you an analogy that's coming to mind, because I jumped on the bad apple, it's like if you're making a recipe and you're putting in too much sugar, you're going to ruin the recipe, because it's too much of the sweet things. So it's just not right for the ingredients as to what you're trying to build.
Absolutely. And what would you say are some easy and simple practices that employers could put in place today to positively impact their workplace culture? What are some of the ones that come top of mind that are really quick to put in place?
So I think, we've adopted a process called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and with that comes a lot of different disciplines, which, I would look to that as a source for how to look to some of these practices. But just things that are coming to mind people crave direction and leadership and just to know where they're going. And so being as clear as you can be, one, about the organization mission and values, but two, about where you're headed in 10, 5, 3, 1 year. And we also break it down into 90-day chunks. And then on a regular weekly basis, just checking in with people on that. So I think the structure, as Gidon touched on, for communication is really important, but trying to communicate as much as possible the direction as to where we're headed.
Absolutely. Especially in today's uncertain world with COVID, right?
Right. So people want the direction, then providing the space for open communication as well. So what we've found is, sometimes as a CEO, people aren't going to share the same things with me. So having different touch points where you have HR like yourself or Luisa or other people on the team that check in with people at a different level. So we really get a feel for how people are feeling. I think that's important. One is the direction on the organization where it's going, but also the touch points on the culture as to how people are feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's that second point is critical in my mind. When we started implementing EOS, one of the things we did is to actually write down our core values, for the workplace environment that we wanted to have, and being forced to actually articulate what are our 6 core values in our organization, not just for myself and Oren to write them down, but for all the leaders and all the managers to write them down. And then we invited everybody in the business to really participate in crafting exactly the words. And then after that, making sure that everybody understands what our values are. And then, to emphasize what Oren was saying, Luisa, you and your team play a significant part in that. To make sure that all of our people really understand what our values are, and then they can start latching on to 1, 2, 3, or hopefully all 6 of those values, and start showing that and exuding that in their work environment. For example, one of our core values is that we want to be fueled with fun. Our products are that we make these social interactive experiences in different verticals. And our products need to be fueled with fun, but we need to be fueled with fun. And yes, although we can't be, shooting tequilas at the office, but one of the ways that, just a small thing that I do to be fueled with fun is I wear my sneakers to work. I know a lot of people like that, and some others, but each one needs to find a way to really have fun at work. Have an enjoyable atmosphere and try and have fun.
I think that those pieces of core values, as you mentioned, they're key to success and clarity in any business. And if we don't have that foundation and know why we are in existence and what we're passionate about, what we're driving to achieve, then how can you have that common goal, right? So, when we talked about, the values and how we've been integral in supporting that within the organization. I mean, we start that right from the interview process, right? We want to make sure that we're aligning with those team members that we're inviting into our work family, that they hold the same values at their core, or that they're evident. There's some sort of alignment there so that we can continue to coach and have them build with that same mindset. It's so important.
That's a very helpful tool that you help us with. Just as a matter of interest, because sometimes in our interview processes, we're very focused on interviewing for fit. Like, can the person do that job? We're hiring a developer. Can the person code in certain languages? And we focus our interview on whether the person has the skills and the experience to do. And you coming at it from a different angle, you and your team in that interview process, and you really help us litmus test whether the person has a culture fit. For our organization, and it's a big role that you play and a critical one.
Thank you. I agree. I always say you can train technical, but you really can't train fit, right?
Right.
It's almost like certain behaviors and experiences have shaped people to who they are today. So it's a much greater change management piece than learning a new skill.
Right.
So on that note, what would we say is the link, if any, between workplace culture and the company's financial performance? Because as we know, we're in the business to also have a profit and continue to build, right? So what's the link between? Is there a link?
Absolutely, there's a link. I mean, there's a quote that comes to mind. Peter Drucker, I believe, said, "Culture eats strategy any day of the week." And so I think that's so true. I mean, you can think about not just a culture from a business setting perspective, but any team, any team that is cohesive and working together, and the strong bond, they're going to be able to achieve more because they're leaning on each other. So like the Navy SEALs, or which I'm obsessed with some of the Navy SEALs, how they work together, they create these everlasting bonds where people know they have their backs and they're able to achieve incredible things. And so I just know, like, I like coming into the office even post-COVID, because, and in working with Gidon, we sometimes we come at things from a different direction. We're like butting heads, but at the end of the day, the product is 150 times better than what I would be able to achieve by myself. And so creating that type of culture, just everybody gets pushed to a whole different level of performance. Like by ourselves, I think we can maybe get to 30% of what we're capable of, but it's working with other people that push us to get closer to the 70, 80, 100%. And so there's an absolute direct impact to the output of the organization, which translates into revenue and financial goals.
Wonderful.
And on the expense side, of course, like having a strong culture reduces turnover. And as everybody knows, that staff turnover is a massive, massive cost, especially nowadays. Not just in the termination process, but even in the hiring process. So there's a direct relationship, certainly, between having a strong culture that everybody links to, and both the revenue side as well as the expense side.
Absolutely. Even in terms of sort of lost productivity, or as we know, if we have to exit someone, it creates a very sort of uncomfortable environment for everyone. How do we navigate through it? So workplace culture is so important. So where can our viewers get in touch with you both if they wanted to continue the conversation?
Yeah, so we're becoming more prevalent on social media. So some of the websites are stream6.com or stream6.gg. There's TimePlay.com. And then on the various social channels, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, we're on TikTok and whatnot. So those.
Wonderful. Thanks, Oren.
Through you.
And yes. And we will also link here to this video so that everyone can know where to reach out. And, thank you again, both of you, for joining me today for this very important conversation. It's definitely been a pleasure. Hopefully our viewers will get some amazing tips to employ right away and make the world a better place, right?
Absolutely. And Luisa, thanks again for your investment in us and your partnership with us. It's been a great help, and thanks for inviting us to have a chat with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for allowing us to share.
Thank you.